Hello, everyone. Great to be here. So, one thing I'm really passionate about since in my early career is this combination of how to look into deep technology, how to drive science and research, how to connect it to product impact into the real world. Something I like to call the magic cycle. It's kind of intentional curiosity of looking into problems, then applying them. And as part of that, I've been at Google now for over 18 years, over a decade on leading products in search, many experiences that I'm sure many of you are using. But what we're seeing today is this transformation of AI and machine learning and technology coming together to actually accelerate this magic cycle. And part of the magic is actually bringing also together people and connecting the dots. So really pleased to be here, really excited to be here in a place that actually bring together people from business and media and technology and industry. And thank you, Steffi, thank you, Yossi, for actually putting it together. Such a great experience. So when we talk about AI, really, it's changing everything. And it's really, I believe, going to be expanding human capability and empower all of us. And I'd like to give a few examples of that. And really, the theme of being future positive is very much in line with what I think about myself as an optimist on what we can do. Let me start with an example. One of the landmark efforts that my team did research 8 years ago, published in JAMA, actually recognizes one of the top papers of the decade, was about how to analyze a condition called diabetic retinopathy, showing that we can do that with AI in the level of an expert. Now, fast forward. Today, working with partners such as Dr. Python, standing next to me in this picture, and Dr. Kim from Arvind Eye Institute in India, we actually brought it to the clinical use. And what I've seen in my own eyes, no pun intended, in Bangkok just a couple of years ago, is how patients get into a room, sitting in front of a camera, and in 2 minutes getting diagnosis that can save them from losing their eyesight. And by now, we've had over 600,000 such screenings in India and Thailand, and just actually partnered with others, governments and startups, to actually expand it to over 6 million screenings in the next decade. So this is the use of AI, in fact, technology and research done almost a decade ago. Fast forward, just a couple of years ago, we looked into how can we use generative AI in order to do something about health. Can we actually use medical data to improve on generative AI and help solve some of the biggest problems in healthcare? And what we found out that we can actually adapt a big model, initially starting with one called Palm, and make them actually pass for the first time US-style medical exam in a passing score. This was a big deal. It's a paper published in Nature. By the time the paper was published, actually, we already improved our models and later actually had a Gemini model that passed those exams in 91% score, which is pretty amazing. And importantly, working with the ecosystem, with healthcare providers, there's already an attempt and testing to see how to use this technology to help, for example, in end-of-shift reports. There are hundreds of thousands of such just in the US, and it turns out that if we can actually improve on that, it can actually save lives. And this is just one example out of many in healthcare, but obviously one thing that we all care about is education. And indeed, inspired by MedPalm, we looked into can we actually build these language models that can help with education. And LearnLM, which we put out just a few months ago, is something that is helping out our language models and working with educators in the community to actually help provide additional capabilities for education, to empower teachers, to empower parents, to make actually learning and education better and more effective. And it's important to remember, many of these technologies are nascent. Generative AI is something that is just started, and really the important thing is to look into the future where it's heading. So really, I think about it as the golden age of research, because it's the time that we can actually drive breakthroughs and very quickly and in a profound way make the impact on real life, and do that actually in combination with scientists, with technologies, with product, with developers, with startups, with governments, and with people from all over industry. Now, when talking about generative AI, obviously one thing that comes to mind is, wait a minute, but they're amazing, I'm pretty astounded, but they're still doing some hallucination. And of course, this is one of the areas that we need to do a better job at. And in fact, a multi-year research on how to make large language models more effective is paying off, and we are making good progress on that, making actually just published a benchmark called FACTS, and working with the industry to see how can we actually improve on that for text, for images, for videos. Hugely important problem that we are still going to drive research and doing more work on that. But when talking about science and scientific progress, of course, there are so many other fields that we can think about. Think about AlphaFold. By now, I presume many of you heard about it. It's a system developed by my colleagues in DeepMind, Google DeepMind, which actually by now enables over 2 million researchers actually use it in order to address questions in protein folding and the use of that in so many different applications. 2 million uses. And of course, this is now widely known and recognized with the Nobel Prize given just recently to my colleagues Demis and John, Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Now, when we think about AI and technology for scientific breakthrough, there are so many other ways. Think about genomics. There are 6 billion nucleotides for every human, and understanding better about the genomics and what can we do with that could have so many different applications on the scientific side, on helping people, on driving science. So again, what started out as a research work of let's see if we can actually understand better genomics with a technology called Deep Variant done by our team, which was recognized, is not only became enabler to actually provide more understanding of genomics. In fact, it got a Guinness record of a pretty unusual situation of actually that helped save life of a teenager by very quickly recognizing his condition and enabling taking medical action based on that. And then built and used to actually build up a better understanding for pangenome and other technologies. And this is something actually that we're also collaborating with many universities and researchers around the world, including here in Munich. And thanks, Willem, my friend, colleague here, for actually being one of the facilitators for that. When thinking about scientific discovery, of course, the most interesting, perhaps, organ of all is our brain. And we've made some progress on that as well in a collaboration with researchers in Harvard universities to try and understand the structure of the brain cell. So taking a brain tissue in the size of half a grain of rice, analyzing all the synapses, all the neurons, all the connections there, and providing the full picture of that particular grain. Now, of course, this is a small, literally tiny step, because when you think about what we need in order to understand the entire brain, it's a million times larger. But it's a pretty profound one because we have the full understanding now of the structure of that particular small grain, which I think is quite profound. Now, of course, this is going to have far-reaching impact on science and on our understanding of how our brain works into the very long kind of term. However, when I think about AI and how it can help actually humanities, there are already examples where it's not only coming soon, but it's already happening. Here's an example. One of the most devastating natural disasters is our floods. And I learned about it by leading crisis response efforts for Google among looking into how to provide actionable information to people during crisis. People do turn to Google whenever there's something happening. Wildfires, as is the case now, devastating wildfires in California, and earthquakes and storms. And people come to look for what's going on, what's happening, what should I be doing. And as we launched something called SOS Alert just some 7 years ago, we discovered that actually for floods, we don't have good enough information. What we see here is this video of a flood that came overnight to a village in Bihar in India. I was actually visiting there, watching the aftermath of that. A few people perished because people did not have the upfront knowledge that something is coming. And then when I asked around, okay, experts of floods and hydrology, what can we do about it? The answer I got was, well, this is really impossible. It's too difficult, too many variables. Well, we thought it's really important to still try to do something about it. So we looked into how can we use AI, machine learning, cloud technologies, data, partnership with the governments and other organizations, and try to predict floods. Fast forward today, we do have prediction in over 100 countries. Over 100 countries, covering 700 million people, providing upfront alert up to 7 days in advance. Actually, people can get it on their phone and get a sense of, oh, the flood level is going to be higher. In fact, this is put out in what we call Flood Hub that is available for everyone. And in fact, for experts, we even use our so-called hydrologic model in over 150 countries, 250,000 virtual gauges. And this was made possible by actually driving the science, driving the research. Actually, it's a paper published in Nature. Now, there are many other aspects where we can use technology in order to make a difference. For example, understanding better the climate, the weather, getting a better sense. So forecasting, 7 to 15 days, forecasting in a technology, again, called neural GCM, and there are others such as GenCast and others that we have developed in the past couple of years. And when we think about AI for science, going back to the question, how can we empower scientists? I think one of the exciting areas that are emerging is about how to actually become an assistant to the scientists, how to actually help with forming a hypothesis, to sift through data, to actually read through data. Of course, a lot of what we do is really based on the information of synthesizing all the information that we have. Now, some of it as consumers, we can do that by the likes of Notebook LM. Really encourage you to try it out if you haven't, or other ways. But as it relates to scientific discovery, there's so much we can do because we can use generative AI. We can use AI in order to actually sift through all the data and coming up and assisting those who are doing it. And there are many research projects around many universities around the world, and we're also looking into that, of course. So when we think about innovation, the important thing about many of the examples that I highlighted is that many of them seemed totally impossible just a few years ago. Many of them became possible by actually exploring new ways, by working together, working in collaboration, trying out, iterating, and we're really very much in the very early days of what we do. So really believe in this kind of collaboration and bringing together everyone. Now, when talking about the future, of course, one thing that is really exciting in terms of the potential to have a breakthrough, a step function, is to really accelerate how we're actually doing computation. Quantum computing is not a new thing. Richard Feynman actually anticipated that perhaps we can do something about it. I was fortunate to be in Bell Labs, where Peter Shor, my colleague, actually showed for the first time that if we would have a quantum computing, it would actually have huge ramifications on computing. And over the years, we are investing in that, and our amazing team in Santa Barbara we had this milestone called Willow, where we showed that we have this step function in quantum computing, demonstrating that for the first time we could show actually this huge acceleration, taking a problem called random circuit sampling, which on the best classical computer would take 10 to the septillion, which is 10 to the 25 time, and would only take 5 minutes on this quantum computing. And even not less importantly, it's about how to solve one of the problems or make progress in one of the big problems in quantum computing, which is how to deal with errors, and showing that we can actually even decrease error as we grow the number of qubits. So these are two milestones that also made many more people optimistic about quantum computing we can see a path to get there. Once we're going to go there, there are going to be so many applications on so many scientific problems because we can actually accelerate computation on many problems that are actually going to unlock opportunities in science, in drug design, and manufacturing, and many other areas. So when we think about where we are, where we're heading, and think about the future, one thing to remember is the following. Many of the things that we're working on, that we're experiencing as consumers, as users of our mobiles, as in our profession, many of the things that we actually take for granted today were not there just a couple of years ago. In fact, some of them were deemed kind of science fiction, right? I mean, who could imagine that we would be able to do what we're doing today? So when you try to think about where we're going to be in the future, I think this is just a glimpse of where we're going to be. So I'm really optimistic about the opportunities to actually unlock some of the biggest problems in humanity, in health, in education, in climate, in drug design, in so many different areas. Now, when we talk about AI, of course, we need to remember we also need to do it in a very responsible way. In fact, Google was the first company to actually declare what we call the AI principles, to have principles of how we develop AI, how do we address them, how to actually help develop technologies that will make AI systems address possible biases, to make sure they are secure, they are private, they are for social benefit. And AI is a really powerful technology, so we need to be really responsible in how we're dealing with that. We actually need to be responsible from the start. But doing it right, I think that we're going to unlock so many opportunities to help all of us. And the important thing is that things are changing all the time, and if we are actually on top of the wave, we can actually reach really, really far and really help humanity. And it's all about working with the people. It's all about empowering all the professionals. It's all about empowering, next generation. Thank you very much.